one that we're going to watch in a second, but I decided I am going to go ahead and discuss some of these a little bit first. As far as the Tony Robbins one goes, it's I think the most important part of that, I'll just kind of tell you that one. It's short. We've watched some of his before. A lot of it has to do with visualization, but it's also kind of self-image, what you believe about yourself. That if you don't believe you can do something, you just can't. And so, as when we watched that visualization one that a few weeks ago, that was part of the reason why he felt like the basketball players who were practicing to make free throws could succeed once they, the group, they had those that were actually practicing free throws, those who were doing nothing, and those who were doing only in their mind, and they could just envision themselves. It was because many of us put mental blocks up, or we just convince ourselves we can't do something, and we choke. I mentioned that I think that the best basketball I ever played when I was uh, juiced up on cold medicine, where I was kind of out of it mentally because I couldn't. Basically, I was too out of it to psych myself out. And so suddenly I was the star in the show, and I was not the best player normally. But that day I was, because I was not psyching myself out. I was just too drugged up on cold medicine. So it was kind of a bizarre experience to be the star when I did not see myself as the star ever. And I never was again, because I never played with cold medicine again. But so it's really weird how we can control ourselves. And indeed, I remember one educator was saying that many of us actually are afraid of success, and we will actually sabotage our efforts. That partly because we just don't believe we can do it, we don't believe we deserve it. For some reason, we put ourselves in a position where we could succeed, but we kind of pull the plug on ourselves. And so the psychology of success is really important, and that is what Tony Robbins emphasizes. So that may be something you want to watch more of his videos for, is to think about the psychology of success, because it definitely is a real factor. Um, and again, he strongly encourages that one way is to just envision what you're going to accomplish over and over and over again, which, by the way, was also what Covey said. Covey mentioned that we should try to envision it and even think about all of our senses. When we achieve that success we're after, we should try to smell the success, hear the success, see the success in our mind. Try to, in our imagination, use all of our senses to make that success a reality to us, to our minds. And then when we actually face those challenges or whatever, we, just like the basketball players, making the free throws in their mind, we can do it. We'll believe that we can do it. Our brain will be rewired to believe we can do it. Because again, that's what you have to do. You have to rewire your brain. We talked about also a little bit about that last week, if you recall, that Mel Robbins was talking about how that 5 second rule, that if you wait 5 seconds to act on some inspiration you have, just 5 seconds, and during those 5 seconds, your mind will tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't do it, all the reasons why you can't do it, because your mind is, as Tony Robbins says in this video, your mind is like a million-year-old instrument. Our minds grew up basically when we were running for our lives from another tribe, from other predators, from dinosaurs, who knows what. Our brains were developed to survive. And so when we face something that's uncomfortable, as Mel Robbins said, our natural reaction is to flee, is to get out of that situation that scares us, even though that what we're frightened of is exactly what we need to get through to get to success. way back in, I think, the first week. I had you watch that video by that young black kid who had become a millionaire by the time he was 14 years old, growing up in poverty, in an inner city where he had no right of becoming a millionaire at 14 years old. He had no possibility. The odds of him becoming successful in the inner city of a city with his mom as his only parental guide, who had no clue how to make it. She was working two jobs. She had no clue how to become wealthy. And here this, when he was, just a kid, he started selling. He decided he could succeed. Started selling stuff when he was like, I don't know, 6 or 8 years old. I can't remember exactly what it was, but by the time he was 14, he was a millionaire. I mean, that's ridiculous. And one of his things that he said way back in that week one was, your greatest successes are on the other side of fear. You have to get on the other side of fear. And that's kind of even Will, the name. Yeah. Anyway, he was talking a couple of, you remember his story of his parachuting out of the airplane. All the things he was scared of was actually when he was not doing it. His million-year-old brain was saying, don't do this, you're crazy, you're going to die, all this sort of stuff. And then when he actually got pushed out of the airplane, it was the most euphoric, wonderful thing he'd ever done. So the fear was when it was not scary, it was when he was afraid. When he's actually doing it, he was not afraid. Bizarre, but that's kind of, our brain is wired that way. And so we need to rewire it, in essence. And so that's what visualization allows you to do, is rewire your brain to where you're comfortable achieving something that you're afraid of, that that makes you nervous, it makes you uncomfortable. You envision it, your brain finally, after a while, it may take quite a while, your brain finally is rewired as you imagine success, and your brain will accept it. Otherwise, it may undermine you. It will tell you all the reasons not to do it, and at the end, you'll be so scared to go through whatever door it is to get you there that you will turn around and run, basically. You won't do it. Oops, that's one I intended to be showing. The other one, actually, Bill Gates wasn't in the other one, but there were some, 4 very intelligent guys. A couple of them I hadn't heard of before. I didn't know their names. The first one was, I forget his first name, Systrom, I think his last name, was the creator of Instagram. And so he was the one talking about, wanting to go to work with Google, because he wanted to be around winners. He wanted to learn from them. And then ultimately, when he did get a better job, they were willing to keep paying him. But in 2008, they didn't want to take any risk. So they were doing exactly what Clayton Christensen said people were doing after 2008. They were scared to death, so they weren't taking any chances at all. And so that's exactly what his company was, the company he was working for, that was their mindset. We don't want to take any chances right now. We're just going to hold on to our money and see what happens. And indeed, Christensen, in his interview or his discussion with the originator of Netscape, his partner is Horowitz. It is Andreessen. Anyway, Mark Andreessen. One of the things, it was Andreessen was saying that all this trillions of dollars during that time was being just stuck away safely because everybody's afraid to spend it. Which my belief is that's exactly that what happened when Donald Trump became president. The day he became president, suddenly the stock market started going up, not only in America but the whole world. Suddenly something started happening, and suddenly employment started coming down. And I'm convinced it was totally because those people who had invested $5 trillion into bonds that guaranteed they would lose money. They were so scared to try to make money, they had stuck all these trillions of dollars into bonds that guaranteed they would lose money, but they were safe. They were considered safe. And so that's what they did. And it seemed like as soon as Donald Trump became president of the United States, they said, we'll start risking our money. And suddenly that's $5 trillion went out into the economy. Maybe not all at once or whatever, but it was dramatic. You look at the numbers and stuff, and the stock market started going up, unemployment started coming down, wages started going up. In that first year of his presidency, it was like a miracle. And Obama and his supporters kept saying, "Oh, but it was really, we set it all up. He just took advantage of it." It was 9% unemployment under Obama. And within a couple of months, bam, it was down to 3% unemployment. So suddenly it was way, way less than under Obama. And I think it was just confidence. But anyway, regardless, whatever it was, people, the economy is controlled by confidence. It's controlled by believing what you can do and what your imagining is. Your imagination telling you, hide the money, or invest, risk the money. It's your same brain trying to tell you that. And that also kind of goes back then to, I'm going to skip over here a second, to Don Valentine was kind of the creator of Silicon Valley. And what he told you was, one of the first things he told you was, you have to learn how to tell a story. Because it goes back to, what can people imagine? If you can tell a story in such a way that people can imagine your success, they can imagine a Silicon Valley, or they can imagine this next big Facebook or whatever it might be, they'll put their money into it. But it's your telling the story that gets them to do that, get them to risk, millions of dollars on you. And so learning how to tell a story, how to share, I sometimes call it sharing a vision. That's also important in things like negotiations and, getting good employees, all those things. It's really how you tell your story. What kind of vision you can get people to share with you. Sometimes that can be a shared vision, going back to Covey, when you start brainstorming and suddenly a group has a vision. You start talking about it, and I think that's when you go to Jack Ma, you think about him. He started with a dozen people in his apartment, and he shared the vision with them, and they went with him, and despite terrible startup pains and so forth, they stuck with him because he was able to share his vision with them, and they believed him, and they stuck with him through thick and thin. So that's telling your story, being able to keep this vision in people's mind is so vital. Going back, then the second speaker in that video was Jack Ma, and he was talking also about the 102-year plan, basically. That they were planning for 102 years of success, and I think that's extremely important too. I told you about my work in Kazakhstan, where the young lady came to me and wanted me to start this program to help non-government organizations, nonprofit organizations. And she wanted to do it for 1 year. And I said, no, if we're going to do this, I want to set this up forever. So now, since then, we've had 10 international conferences. We have, published 10 books on the best practices of nonprofit organizations in Central Asia. We started with $10,000, and since then we've been given $10 million to do the work and spread it throughout Central Asia. That has to do with a vision, has to do with planning for ongoing success. If we had planned for 1 year, it would have been 1 year. That would have been it, because our support was very minimal, and we just wouldn't have taken the right steps for it to be an ongoing program, because our mind would have limited itself. And so I'm proud of that effort, and I'm proud of that vision that I had, that I shared with them. And I'm glad that it's still going, even though I'm not there anymore. It does face a challenge. It faces the Clayton Christensen challenge. That if you become too successful, then you get a little bit stagnant. You become a little safe, and you don't invest in disruptive innovation, and somebody else does. And so depending especially how technology driven your industry is, success can be dangerous, and lasting 102 years might be hard. But I guess the thing that I was thinking when I said what I did about creating that insights program, insights into development program, was the startup is the hardest part. Surviving 1 year is the hardest part. Surviving 2 years is easier. Surviving 3 years, if we do well, will be easier still. I believe that. And so it was financially. We went from 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 to suddenly 100,000, and then suddenly the U.S. government came up and said, "Hey, we've got 4 million for you. If you can, over the next few years, if you can come, do what keep doing what you're doing, but we'll give you the money, and we want you to spread to more countries. We want you to get on the internet. We want you to do things you're not doing now, but we like what you're doing." And so one $4 million contract led to another $4 million contract, and so forth. And so the hard part was surviving the first year. If you're going to put the effort into the first year, plan for ever. I also mentioned before, I think, I get mixed up sometimes what I talk about in this class and the other class, but Walmart, where the founder of Walmart, he just ran a little store. He started off with a small hardware store, where they sell hammers and nails and equipment, for, stuff for fixing stuff, maybe some lumber, stuff like that. And then, he had the vision that he developed over decades in that one little town in northwestern Arkansas. And so he built his little store into a bigger and a bigger and bigger store with more things and more things. And now as I mentioned, the Walmart is like a mall in and of itself. One store that offers clothing and food and electronics and sports equipment, and you can go have your car fixed, and you can get your hair done, and you can eat at McDonald's or some fast food place within that one store. Everything's in that one store. And now that's the richest family in America. It's a small vision, but keep building and building. And in their case, I think there's no doubt they'll last. They've already lasted about 50 years, and they are the biggest company in America. So I would say they will last their 100 years. The Warren Buffett comments were interesting about his challenge for you to think of your classmates and look at them and say, okay, I'm going to choose that one. That's going to be the person that I'm going to bet will make the most money. Therefore, I want 10% of his salary for the future. And you look and who's going to make the least? Because I have to pay 10% of my salary to the stupidest person or whatever, the most unsuccessful person out of my class. And what are the traits they have? And his point was the people they look for are the people who are intelligent, who are innovative, and who have integrity. And if you think about it, that's pretty much, to a large degree, Covey's formula. He bases all 7 habits on integrity and on eternal principles, starting with integrity, but with other things too. The belief and potential of everybody's potential, that you can develop yourself, you can develop others, that you can, the importance of being of service to other people and to do good and so forth. Eternal principles, he believes, are also successful principles that led to his 7 habits. It is important, though, also, my biggest disappointment was when I hired bad people. I failed as an employer in hiring people that destroyed one of my businesses, and I didn't control them. I didn't get rid of them soon enough, because and the problem was they did not have integrity. That's exactly where they were failing. They had intelligence, just like he said. If somebody lacks integrity, you don't want them to be intelligent. You don't want them to have initiative, because if they also have no integrity, they will undermine you. And that's exactly the sort of people I hired for that one company, who undermined me with good intelligence, good initiative, and no integrity. And so they totally undermined the company. And so that's my biggest disappointment in life, was that one enterprise. And it was all based on who did I find to surround myself with. And I got fooled on that one for sure. Um, the Then Valentine, he mentioned, like I said, how to tell your story, but also said the other thing that Covey says and that is how to ask questions. If you think about going to the interpersonal success of thinking win-win, but the real key, your philosophy is think win-win. The end result is, if you're working with other people, is achieve synergy, but in between is seek first to understand and then be understood. And seek first to understand is built on questions. You ask the right questions, you understand. Now you build relationships by asking the right questions, and you also begin the synergy process. Because if you understand where they're coming from, now your mind can start thinking, okay, how can we win-win? What can we do together to achieve something that nobody's ever achieved before, and so forth. So all of um, his interpersonal success strategies really relate, or at least are activated by asking good questions. And so questions are, as Warren Buffett said, no, excuse me, that was Valentine, excuse me, the godfather of Silicon Valley was the one that said that. So how to tell your story, how to ask the right questions. The Pursuit of Happiness. I don't know if you watched the whole movie. It certainly is worth watching. But I think it also, I guess, some of the takeaways to me, or one of the main takeaways, is some of the most important experiences in your life will be the hardest. They'll be the hardest. Um, Sometimes you just survive. That's kind of what Horowitz. That's what Horowitz told us. Here he is, a billionaire or whatever, or close to it, if not. Yeah, but he said, he's talking about starting that first company. He slept like a baby, woke up every 2 hours, and cried himself to sleep. It was so hard because he didn't see a way out. He couldn't figure out. He's reading all these books and everything. He could not see a way to success. But he ultimately fought and fought and fought until suddenly they did sell the company that he had built for billions of dollars. I think it was to Hewlett to Packard. I think they sold to, which then gave him the money to do other things. You have to understand. You have to be prepared for it. That especially if you're going to be an innovator, and that not doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur necessarily. But if you're an innovator, you'll have people that are trying to undermine you out of jealousy. You'll have people who have a totally opposing agenda. You'll have people who are too lazy, that they just want to do things like they have always been done. There's lots of people that will find ways. There'll be the politics within a university even. So it doesn't have to be an enterprise, a business enterprise at all. Your innovation can be undermined by jealous, uh, non proactive, uh, non people with no integrity. There's those sorts of people are out there, and you can count on it that they're going to come after you if you are being proactive, if you're trying to innovate, if you're trying to accomplish something good. People will come after you. And it may include some people you thought were friends. And so you have to be ready for that, but it's going to happen. And that doesn't mean you give up. Just because somebody stabbed you in the back once in business doesn't mean you are afraid to ever go into business again. You shouldn't be. But you should be more careful next time. If you hire the bad people and they destroy your business, it means you don't go into business again. It means you hire the right people next time. You learn by your mistakes and keep going. Um, okay, well, I need to watch this other video, um, and then we will talk a little bit and uh, close our class from there. I like this movie because it kind of represents a lot of what we've been talking about. course, the metaphor of the butterfly represents each one of us. That each one of us has something inside of us that can make us amazing. It doesn't all happen at once. As a butterfly isn't born a butterfly at the beginning; it's a caterpillar, and then goes through different stages to become what its potential is. And that's what we can be too. If we do the things we need to do to make that metamorphosis from whatever we are to whatever we want to be. I have another video on the list, but I'll just, as far as answering your quiz and so forth, that pretty much you already know it, and that is if you watch the previous video by Nick Benchichik, saw one where he went to a prison and he was telling people, prisoners who had committed crimes, his story and about how basically how they could come out and change their lives and achieve their potential. He's traveled to 85 different countries as of a few years ago anyway, and he's been a lot of influence on a lot of people. He went to the Ukraine, and they invited him to talk to their Congress in the Ukraine, and afterwards he didn't know this when he went there. He didn't know that it was actually against the law for a disabled child to go to school. But after they met him, they immediately passed a law saying that all children could go to school, even those that had disabilities like he has. They recognize, if Nick can do this, then our disabled kids can be amazing also. And so he's opened all sorts of doors that would not have opened if he had not recognized in himself what his own potential was, what he could do. And so he's touched the lives. He's told his story in front of millions of people. Millions and millions of people around the world have met Nick Benchichik and heard his story and seen what he's able to do and heard his encouragement not to allow yourselves to be brought down by others or by your own fears, by your own poor self-image, whatever, to believe in yourself and to work towards achieving your potential. Obviously, I mean, frankly, I don't think there's anybody here that has the problems that Nick Benchichik was born with. It's somewhat understandable why, when he was a child, he wanted to die, where he could not envision himself ever doing anything of any value in this world. He couldn't envision it. He couldn't envision ever being married. The day he was married, his dad said, "I didn't think you ever get married." His dad was very supportive, actually, but he didn't think he'd ever be able to be married. And he's not only married, he has 4 children now. He plays golf. He does all sorts of stuff. Sometimes he has to have, specially, made equipment and stuff like that. But he's living an amazing life, considering all the handicaps that he had to overcome to get there. And so he, as an individual, is quite representative of this movie that he starred in, that we can make a metamorphosis from whatever we are now to whatever, and obviously we all have limitations. He has limitations. There are some things he cannot do, obviously, but there's some things he can do. I think one of the things he told the prisoners, if you watch that movie, was, he wished that he could have a miracle. He could suddenly have arms and legs. He said, maybe I can't get that miracle, but I can be somebody else's miracle. And I think he has been to millions of people, has been other people's miracle. I believe in you. That's why I teach this class. I believe that you all can do amazing things, that all of you have potential inside of you to do amazing, amazing things. If you will, if you believe in yourselves, if you set your stepping stone goals. If you don't give up, you don't be discouraged, you keep going. If you are always, if you are, keep those, if you build those 7 habits to be proactive, to not just, wait for the world to come to you, but you go out and fight for what it is that you want to accomplish, that you have that end in mind of what you want to accomplish, that you control your time. The thing we all have the same amount of is time, but how we handle our time with those 4 quadrants. Do we schedule our time? Do we manage our time in such a way that we can get into that second quadrant and accomplish those things that we ourselves know that if we did that, we could change the world, we could change our future, we could change our destiny. But we have to control our time and get into that second quadrant and build whatever that dream is that we're dreaming of. If we understand how to work with other people, thinking win-win, not be afraid of helping somebody else succeed, because as we help them succeed, they will help us succeed. And if we can team up in some ways, then we can and understand each other and brainstorm and build synergy, then we can find those other resources that we need to accomplish our goals. As Tony Robbins explained to us, that we may lack resources, so to compensate for lack of resources, we need to be resourceful. We have to go find them. And that takes some creativity and some communication, some ability to tell your story, the ability to ask those questions, the ability to find those alliances, whatever you need to do to get where you want to go. We need to do that. Those interpersonal relationships are frequently, those will help us achieve the greatest successes if we know how to do that. And then, of course, with this habit 7 was how to maintain ourselves and to keep growing, lifelong learning, time to think and ponder and invent and so forth. We need to take some time in order to maintain our energy, to build our understanding, to prepare for ourselves for that success, and not allow ourselves to be dragged down by lack of good health, lack of good relationships, lack of integrity, lack of whatever it is. We need to build those things in order to be successful. And so, I believe that you can all be successful. You all have what's in you that's necessary to achieve success, however you define success. And I hope in this class that you've learned some of the principles you need to do that. And that you're not in my department, so I probably won't, I'll see you in passing as we go by, but I would love to, have you befriend me on Facebook and communicate with me and let me know what's going on. I love to, I have relationships with my students from 10 years ago or even longer, other people I've worked with, and I still consider myself their mentor. Obviously, I'm more of a mentor for those that are in my field. They're in communications, but one of them is head of a TV station, and I think I told you about him. He was his major was international relations, but he had some experience working part-time at a TV station, and he suddenly when he graduated, realized there wasn't any money going into the foreign service in Kazakhstan. They were paying practically nothing, and the TV station was willing to pay him more, even though he didn't have a major in communications. He had some basic skills. And so when they offered him that job, they wanted him to go to Los Angeles and do a series of video stories. And he came to me and said, "Ken, teach me how to do this. They're asking me to do things I've never known how to do. And it's not my major. So now convert me from an international relations student, to a journalist." And so I gave him that time, and now he's the head of a TV station, and he's like 28 years old, having a marvelous career already. So I like to be people's mentors and like to help them succeed. And continue to work with my former students to do that. I very frequently get people texting me on Facebook asking for, how about this? How can we do that? How can I? The same person also never took any management courses, and so once he became a manager, he texted me again saying, "Okay, teach me how to be a manager." So, I actually told him he should be reading Seven Habits of Highly Effective People to start with. That would be a good place to start to become a manager, and then we kind of went from there. So stay in touch. Let me know what's going on in your lives. Be successful. Achieve your dreams. It's all possible out there. Thank you.
Good morning to the lecturer and all my fellow friends. Today I'm going to talk about how to control your future. I'm going to introduce our member. I'm Evelyn and she is Fanny and she is Zhao Yiwei. The content of this is the first is we are going to explain about the dream of a lifetime and then career explosion, choosing your major, getting the right stuff, career development starts now, the power of networking, resume and cover letters, and interviewing for success. First of all is the dream of a lifetime. It is all about the why. Why do we need to think about why we choose to attend the college and maybe think about why college is so important to you. The second one is about having our own life goal. Everybody have a different life goal. So it may vary in terms of maybe in finance or maybe it can be personal. But our goal is really important because it can influence the decision that we are making for our future. And the third one is we should find out the reason behind our dream. It's more essential because if we are better to prioritize our thoughts so that our future and we're able to identify about the new option. The second one is about the career exploration. There are differences between job and career. We need to define the differences before we choose which one we are going to do. Job lets you enjoy the minimal level of finance security, and job require you to show up and do whatever you need to do and then you get paid. But if career, we have a sequence that lead into the increase of the financial security, or maybe we can even have our professional development. This is the first step of the career exploration. We need to find out who am I. We are all an unique individual with a distinct combination of like, dislike, personality, and traits. John Holland said that there are 6 types of personality interests. They are realistic, investigate, artistic, social, enterprise, and conventional. The realistic people is usually more structured. They are clean lines with authorities. They work with things and tools. For example, the example of the career that they can choose is like contractor or mechanic. The investigate people, they are usually non-structured and they work with ideas or data. For example, the pharmacist. The third one is the artistic. They are non-structured, they are creative, and they are the creation of products and idea. For example, the animator, the musician, or maybe they can work in advertising. The third one is the social. They are more collaborative. They work with people and people related. For example, teacher. The fifth one is the enterprising. They work with people and data. For example, the banker, the lawyer, the business owner. And the last one is the conventional type of people. They work with system to manipulate and the organized data. For example, the auditor, bank teller, office manager, or database manager. The next one is going to be continued by Fanny.
Next one is choosing your major. Choosing a major in a college is not an easy thing, but don't be panic over it. The first step is to follow your dream. Ask around about the major you are going to take. Ask either your friends or your family or maybe your seniors who are experienced with it. And you have to choose two main major, which one you will take, because not everything will go on your way. Just in case something goes not according to your way, so you can have another option. Make whatever the major you take is fun. Although it's maybe hard, but think of it as it is a fun thing and you will enjoy it throughout the way. But remember, you have to open to change. If you really can't do it anymore, don't force yourself and change your major right away. You don't have to be ashamed if you change your major, because nowadays 50% of students who are in the college, they change their major at least 3 or 5 times to find which major is suitable for them. Rather than stressing over one major that you can't even study about it, better you change it and you will get better score of it. And then if you're going to college but you still don't know what major you will take, it's okay. Take it easy and don't rush anything. The requirements of employment. You have to master 2 skills before going to work. The first one is work-based skill. Work-based skill includes knowing how to use your equipment, mastering the processes of how to use it. Work-based skill and the second one is transferable skill. It includes the thinking skill, communication skill, and listening skill. In the workplace, you have to think critically, communicate well with your colleague, and listen the inputs given by your seniors. If possible, find the work experience as much as you can. You can first volunteer in places related to your work. By volunteering, you can master many transferable skills and you can add it in your resume. The second one is internship. You can gain practical experience and develop relationships related to your work. And lastly, you can have part-time job when you are studying. You can become the stronger candidate for your future opportunities because once you graduate from your college, you have already had the experience of working and you can become a better student too. Next one is career development. You have to start your career development now. The first thing to do is stay organized. You have to be organized all the time. Starting from organizing yourself. You have to set some physical space for your career development and job hunt. Maybe you can put some space in your room to gather all your papers about the job hunt and your career development. So when you want to search of it, you will be easier. And the second one is organize your digital space. Create a file for all your career-related documents in your computer. So when you want to find something about your career related, you don't have to search throughout your desktop with so many files on it. You can open one file and you will find it easily. And the next one is going to continue by Zhao Wei.
The next part, I was going to talk about the power of network. Successful future defined by most people is to find a satisfied job, but it is estimated that only 20% of new jobs are advertised or posted. That means the other 80% of jobs need personal connect and networking. So what exactly is networking? In its simplest term, is the process of engaging others in helping you reach an objective. The process of networking involves 3 basic phases: prospect identification and management, making contact, and follow-up. So, all connects are equal, but some are more effective. Identify whom you should be speaking to. That means try to select someone is helpful for your work. Your success in networking will be driven by the quality of candidates. Ability to assess those contacts when you need to. There are countless ways to keep track of contacts, like send an email or make a call. Choose a system you feel comfortable. That is where contact management comes into play. And let technology help you. You can use your computer and handphone to capture information and do some schedule and reminder. Then building a network requires consistent work.
If you make the call to keep contacting, some basic elements cannot be ignored. The first one, be mindful of your contact times. If this first contact, tell the contact where you got his or her name and be specific about how it can help you. Use your network for more than just asking for jobs, and helping others in your network is also significant. Much of the success of your networking efforts depends on what you do. If you receive a message from others, the first thing you should do is thanks for his or her contact and keep in touch. Then if you have any trouble, you can just ask for help. Then send a follow-up note of thanks. If you have promised something, you do what you say you will do. Then resume and cover letters. Resume is basically a summary of your experience. The purpose of your resume is to get you invited for an interview. In order to avoid being excluded by the hiring manager, we should know the skills to prepare this resume. A short resume is generally better than a long one. If you don't have enough experience, you can just you'd better don't write down more than 2 pages of resume. Focus on your accomplishment, not just the position you held, and include numbers. That means you can record the amount of money and percentage about your achievement. Then use keyword and keep information easy to find. A finishing touch. Once you have written the body of your resume, review and discuss it with the people you respect. Make sure your resume is short and sweet. Expect conflicting opinion from others and don't get hung up on them. The final decision is yours. About the format. Choose the document formatting wisely and use a readable font. That means different fonts should be different points, like Times New Roman. You should do it no smaller than 11 points and try to keep margin at 1 inch. Print your resume on a high-grade bright white paper. Then about the cover letters. A successful cover letter should emphasize how your knowledge, skills, and experience make you an ideal candidate. Be sure to state what job you are applying for and why in your opening paragraph. Remember that your cover page demonstrated your community skills. You should be careful and double check the contact, and then you just make sure the format is simple to read. The next part about the interview. We have 3 types of interview. The first one is information or networking interview and screening interview. The last one is a one-on-one interview. So how we should prefer for the interview? Learn about the organization, because maybe you will be asked, what can you do for the company? And use your network. If you know anyone who works for or has worked for this company, you can call his or her and ask more. Review the job description. Be prepared to explain how your background qualifies you for this job, and review the resume. Then use your study guide. Find a quiet 1 or 2 hours to review the study guide and prepare your answer, then practice them. Prepare yourself physically. An interview is likely to make people feel anxious, and the anxious emotion can result in poor interview. Make sure you eat well and get a good night's sleep before the interview. Just to impress, and punctuality counts. So there are some tips of success during the interview. Before the interview, avoid unexpected distraction and turn off your cell phone before you even enter the building. And then know whom you will be interviewing with and what his or her role is in the company. Once you are face-to-face with the interviewer, do this follow. First, relax. Be yourself. Keep your tongue conversational but not too informal. And avoid slang and expletive. Make eye contact but don't stare. When asking questions, keep your ask focused on your skills and knowledge. Avoid one-word answer and don't ramble. Be truthful. If you don't understand a question, just ask for the clarification. If you don't have the exact fact an interview is asking for, offer to find out and get back to them. At the end of interview, thank the interviewer and tell him or her you enjoy your conversation. After the interview, be sure to send a thank you note to each person you interviewed with. An email is usually acceptable, especially if the employer requires you to submit a resume. Be sure to send it within 24 hours.
So for the conclusion is you can't change your past, but you can let go and start your future. It is not too late now for you to start all about your career and then you plan your future. Okay, that's all from us. Thank you.